Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Khofaune. I'm Khofaune Modise, and today I'm joined by Nadeira Karriem from SBI, that's Stellenbosch Business Institute, and we'll be talking about the new kind of leader that's needed today. Hi, Nadeira, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. And you, Khofa?
I'm amazing.
Great to be here.
All right, finally.
Absolutely.
So, before we even get into the topic, can you just tell us a bit about yourself and your background at SBI?
Absolutely. So my name is Nadeira, as you've heard already. And my role at SBI is super exciting because what I get to do every day is to listen to leaders, to hear what's happening in their spaces, and to design these journeys that really make them shift and think. And that takes me right back to when I started studying. I studied human behavior psychology, and I'm just so interested in what makes people tick. And overlay that with business. It's just a perfect marriage of taking design, human behavior, business, all rolled into one and doing what I do on a daily basis. I'm the client executive at SBI. And as I said, it's just a really exciting space. That's my day job. You didn't ask about my night job. My night job is that I've got a 6-year-old boy who is an absolute blessing, a pleasure to be around, who teaches me more about myself than I do when I design journeys. And so that's just a little bit of the guilty pleasures and joy in my life as well.
I love that. I love how the language that you use is so new to me. You described it as journeys that you allow these leaders to go through, or you empower them to go through. And that's something very peculiar, I think, that when it comes to SBI, as Stellenbosch Business Institute, it's the language that you used. I know that a lot of the time you say that you're grounded in neuroscience, and your tagline being beyond a business school. Can you explain to us what that means?
So it's a whole lot of things. But I think what's key about it is we have to think and be beyond where we find ourselves every day. And that sounds like a really weird statement, right? There's a lot of information out there. You can sit on ChatGPT, on the internet, you can find anything you want to find. But for us at SBI, it's about saying, as quick as we can learn and take in information, how quickly can we use it to lead? How quickly can we move you beyond the learning space into really being an authentic human who understands themselves, that is self-aware, and that translates into how you deal with your teams, how you are with people, and of course, how you lead. And that ripples into organizations at large and society at large. And so our Beyond Business School value proposition is really about saying, how do we firstly help or guide how leaders think? Because we all have this thing, the brain, which is a really complex machine, really. But how do you change the way you think? How do you rewire? You can change anything as a human, but it's about saying it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. Diet pills, I always say this, diet pills, the industry of weight loss will tell you that. Just because you tell someone they need to lose weight or change doesn't mean they want to or know how to. And so our process is really about how do you allow people the space to understand themselves and how they react in situations, and then how can they make the subtle changes or big changes if they want that can impact their team and their organization at large. And that is what we're all about. Neuroscience is there because it needs to be there to create a lasting impact and a lasting shift. Otherwise, as quick as we walked into the room and heard 200 words, it's as quick as we will lose that information. So the process, make sure it sticks. It really sticks in your mind and shifts how you behave.
I appreciate the terms that you're using and everything being so scientifically based, because when you go on social media, you see these leadership codes, you get on TikTok or Reddit, you see these leadership codes, and you're not a leader unless you have 10,000 people following you, or otherwise you're a follower, or are you a sheep or a lion? And it's just like, what are we actually doing? So based on your experience, how would you define leadership, especially considering how it's evolved, the term alone has evolved over the years?
I'll describe it from the way I experience it from people. So when I speak to leaders, they've got KPIs, they've got strategies, they've got targets, they've got budgets to meet, and they have to be authentic, and they have to be, and it's like, which one must I be right now? And so it's become, the environment has changed. It's not the qualities of leaders that have changed, because leaders are humans. Leadership is actually just a process. So it's the environment that's changed. It's fast-paced,
Yeah.
it's different, it's complex, it's multiple things happening at one time. And so you're like, oh, now what do I focus on? And so because that context has changed, it's meaning that we have to take a long, hard look at ourselves in the mirror and say, as a human, we're having a human experience in business. We're not having a business experience as a human. We are the experience. And so if you look at it like that, it's about how do we shift? How do we contribute in a way that's authentic to me and is giving back to business or to community or whatever the spaces are that I can influence? But if you don't authentically know who you are, how you're anchored, then all the disruption is just going to throw you off all the time. You're not going to know how to clearly and concisely make a decision, how to have a conversation, a difficult one, an easy one. But if you know yourself, that is your anchor. You know when something feels wrong or right. You know when something is the wrong decision. Yes, you do the research and all of that's all important parts of it. But if you are self-aware and you can anchor yourself, those decisions become so much more easier, more intuitive, more aligned to who you are. And that would only enhance everything around you as well.
I mean, it sounds all good and well until until there's a crisis.
Yes.
There's a crisis and the humanness of a leader comes out.
Yes.
And so you see, I know there was a point in time, I don't know if it's still a thing now, where toxic work environments were a big thing and a big topic all over. What do you think is a major contributor to that? And especially when it comes to a misconception that leaders may have who do need to meet their KPIs and do need to make the stakeholders happy, but also at the same time, they are leading human beings who are living very human lives and having human experiences that are sacrificing so much to accommodate whatever the leader requires.
Yeah. It's kind of a give and take, if you think about it. Business has an output, an outcome, a requirement, and an individual has a requirement. And yes, there's a trade exchange, really. You're paying me to do something, and so surely it must be done. But I think what we fail to appreciate is that when I say self-awareness, it sounds fluffy. Mm-hmm. It's not fluffy. Sure. If you have a brain, which we all do, you have bias. You do. Whatever you think, if you think you don't, you're fooling yourself. You have bias. And that bias comes from the way you were raised and what you've heard and your formative years and how that was shaped and lots of other factors that may not be known and will not be visible to your colleagues and to your employer for that matter. And if you don't know what your biases are, you don't know when you're triggered. So you become extremely reactive. Oh, that triggered me. Oh, you said that and that triggered me. I think we're seeing a generation coming into the workplace now. Well, we've got so many generations in the workplace, firstly. But secondly, we've got a generation coming in that is more self-aware than we ever were, right? So there's that component. But it's the biases. If you know what your bias is, you know when someone's stepping on your trap. And you know to stop that thinking and your response to it. Think about it, pause before you do anything. So that's one side of it. Underlying other sides is the fear factor. So fear, also neuroscience, because our brains are wired for survival. If you think of how we started as human beings, we're wired for survival. We need to keep ourselves alive. And some of that survival mechanism shows up in business. We are here because we need to survive. And so some situations feel like survival situations, and we respond in that manner, that flight or fright response. And so why am I saying all this? Is you spoke about toxic environment. Well, you know what? If something is said in a certain way and you hear it through the lens of your bias, which you will, and fear, which you may, then it's going to feel toxic. But we don't have the conversations. We don't say, Hofa, actually what you said really triggered me. And it's not about you, it's about how I heard it. Let's have that conversation. But we're skirting around it because KPIs, deadlines, no. And we're not having those human conversations. So first and foremost, you can't have that conversation if you don't know yourself. You don't know what some of your triggers are. You don't know what your biases are. You don't know when you are in survival mode or threat mode. And then, yes, toxicity happens because everyone's triggered. But I do think the human switch was flipped a little bit during COVID. Well, a lot during COVID, where both employer and employee are almost in friction some days, but are having more conversations about it than before. Because in COVID, we were fighting for survival, both from a business perspective, because so many businesses were challenged, and also from a personal perspective, losing loved ones, being ill yourself, etc., has put us into a space where we've had to open up the conversation far more than we thought was possible before. And that's a good place.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned a shift in environments. And I think it's interesting that you say this, because that means that traditional leadership models need to shift. They're not going to work anymore. So what kind of leader is required today? What kind of leadership model can SBI, or is SBI going to introduce to organizations?
Yeah. So we have this very well researched, but also very exciting model that we subscribe to, and it's called the shift quotient, the anticipatory leader. And that is about saying that while you know yourself, understand yourself, the neuroscience perspective, etc., it's about saying, how do you understand the complexity of the world around you? How are you not crumbling by it? How are you shaping it? How are you anticipating? How are you leading through it as opposed to crumbling underneath it? And so for us, it's about saying, how do you develop the skills? And there's three specific skills. It's called the futurist, the strategist, and the integrator. How are you developing those three
What are those three?
As a leader? It's very interesting. Futurist is really looking around corners, looking through and beyond the obvious. It's the terminology, it's the type of thing that Discovery did. Discovery Medical Aid in South Africa was a medical aid, insurance benefits for health conditions, health reasons. They then opened up a bank. Nobody saw that Discovery Medical Aid was going to become Discovery Bank 2. Nobody saw that they were going to reward you when you exercised, when you slept well, when you, instead of paying health bills all the time, insuring you for those, we are rewarding you for being healthy. We're rewarding you for sleeping well, we're rewarding you for eating well, etc., exercising and so forth. So it's about how you anticipate opportunities where others are seeing complexity. So that's the futurist. It's
So
through and
interesting.
beyond the obvious. The strategist is saying, taking that, what I've seen, that opportunity, and creating action from it. Because listen, you can have the best strategy in the world, you can have the best vision in the world, but if you cannot execute on it, it's never going to happen. So the strategist is really about saying action. From the foresight you've had in futurist, how do you create the action? And the integrator is saying, in a complex system, how do you make this work? How do you bring the people? How do you bring the policies? How do you bring your team along with you? How do you get everything together to integrate, to take up that opportunity that you've seen in the force?
And this is one leader or three different individuals?
One leader, three different competencies,
So
three different skills that is going to help you cut through the noise. Because the fact is, everything is fast-paced. What are you actually taking in? How are you making a clear decision? And that's what the anticipatory leader focus really looks at, is how do we give leaders those key competencies, those three skills, including some neuroscience, which is necessary, as I spoke about just now, to really cut through the clutter and shape the world they want around them.
Right.
Not just react.
Yeah.
Proactively respond to the world around them.
This is so interesting, Nadeira, because I don't think this is something one can just read on and then they're like, okay, cool, I've heard of this before. I've seen this marketed by this particular leadership organization. What preempted you to kind of, you as the SBI team, to say this is the kind of leader that's needed today post-COVID and that's going to last or help impact organizations in the next 10 years?
Yeah. So, earlier on when I introduced myself, I said I love listening to people. And so we go and talk to a whole lot of organizations, understanding what are some of the challenges they're experiencing, what's their lived experience on the ground. Otherwise, we're designing these amazing stuff in a vacuum, and that's definitely not our intent. Our designs are very intentional. So in these conversations, and multiple of them, we're hearing how leaders need something different. They need something different. They don't want traditional. They've done the normal, traditional middle management program, senior management program, etc. They've done it all. But they are in a very fast-paced environment where they have to make decisions quickly, and those decisions are big decisions. It impacts teams, it impacts people, it impacts organization in large ways. And so as we listened, we realized that the missing ingredient, and we knew about this research on anticipatory leader, is how can we help leaders to anticipate so that they are not reactive all the time. They're not on the back foot. They are proactively responding to shift and change. And that's where the anticipatory leader was born out of. There is a white paper on it. It is very well researched and all of those good things, because that's important, but it's about the practicality of it. That's why we love it so much. It is practical. It offers very useful insight and tools in what needs to happen for leaders, but it's the way we deliver it that I think is the most exciting part of it all.
Yeah.
It's a great concept. It can do so much for leaders in business. We've trialed it in a few organizations, but for us, it's about how we deliver it. That's so cool.
That's obviously beyond the school.
So cool. Absolutely.
Yeah. When you go to leadership conferences, the fluff. I say what I said. You'll hear things like, I think for the past 2 years, something I've often heard is, what's next? It's AI, don't fear it. It's not replacing you. It might, but adapt or die. And you hear all these things. But I've come to appreciate and understand that some leaders do kind of fear that AI may replace them or make their roles less useful or less impactful. How do you interpret that from a neuroscience and anticipatory leader perspective?
Yeah. It's interesting because there's been so much flux and change around us. It does trigger our survival instinct a lot more. And from a neuroscience perspective, that fear response is normal. It is absolute. It's what keeps you alive.
Yeah.
If there was a lion running towards you, get out the way. If you're not fearful, then you are not going to survive. It's the same thing with AI. We can say all we want, it's not going to replace you, whatever, but it's different. Never heard of this thing before. It's already telling me how to respond to that text from my mother-in-law, for example. So now next thing, it can tell me what to cook for dinner tonight. So next thing, it's going to tell my boss what I should have done for the year. And that's just a normal response. However, when you think about anticipatory leader, the concept of it is about saying, how do you integrate, right? How do you create action from the foresight? You see it coming. Well, don't be afraid of it, which is a normal human response. So deal with the fear you have, first of all. And then it's about saying, how do I use this? I need to smash those goals for the year. I need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, it's here. It's at my disposal. It's accessible. Use it. And I think because there's so much hype about it, it's taken away from the usability of it. It can be used in so many ways, but it cannot. We had a conference, an SBI conference called the C-Leader Summit recently. And we had Dr. Vivian Ming out. She's a theoretical neuroscientist. And what she said, and she uses AI extensively in the work she does. And what she said is as AI becomes more prominent, build better humans.
Ooh.
Right? So what are we doing with the AI? We are so powerful, but we forget and we doubt ourselves. There's no need to doubt ourselves, because what AI can do is collect a whole lot of data and give it back to you. What it can't do is make sense of it like you can. It cannot find the patterns and the correlations in the data. Only we can do that, and only we can interpret it for good business decisions or decisions in general. So I just think there's so much power in embracing, but that isn't easy. And so for us, even in Anticipatory Leader, we start with neuroscience first. Let's understand how we're responding in this situation with this newfound self-awareness. Now let's think about how we can have foresight futures, how we can create action, and how we can integrate everything that we've done.
Wow, that's really beautifully answered. Do you think you'd be reading it out of a paper? But look at you, it's just coming out of you, flowing naturally. I did say you're going to be fine. Anyway. Do you answer this for me? How does the anticipatory leadership process translate to real life organization?
So it's, again, going back to the human side of it. So for an organization, it's key that first of all, it's key that whatever we do makes an impact.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why are we doing it? And yes, I know there's a lot of learning out there that maybe doesn't make impact. We want to make an impact. So our process, first let me talk process and then I can talk impact after that. Process is 2-day not a masterclass, because masterclass is just overdone. It's a 2-day sprint. It is fast-paced, fast-moving, immersive. It is so immersive, you will think you're in the Matrix or in outer space, but you're solving real life business challenges. We're pushing your thinking constantly. Why is it immersive? So you step out of your mind. Because it's only truly when you step out of your mind sometimes that you can actually show up with your authentic self. Once you've shown up with your authentic self, we can work with that. We can talk about, we can debrief, we can action, we can do things. And that is really what we want to do. So now, taking that concept, when you go back into business, when something new gets thrown at you, when you're suddenly on Mars, which we hope that you aren't, but when you're suddenly on Mars, when you're suddenly hit with a new tech issue, with a new opportunity, it's not deer in the headlights, it's you harnessed already those skills of anticipatory leadership, and the context has just changed. So we take you so far out of your environment so you can't overly rationalize it. And then when you go back into your environment, when the weird stuff hits you, because it will, we're in a Barney world, it will hit you, you can respond with the key skills that you have gained over the process.
That's beautiful.
And that is really the magic.
Yeah, it is. And so what closing or parting words would you leave any leader with after listening to you?
I would firstly say lean into the discomfort that is sometimes. It's really about saying, how do you lean into it? Be aware you're feeling uncomfortable. Be aware you're feeling anything. The fact that you're feeling anything, you're human.
Yeah.
Okay. Be authentic. Tell people, this is what's happening for me right now. Ask the right questions. We are so afraid to show up as we are. But I mean, ask the right questions. You don't have to have all the answers. As a leader, you do not need to be the smartest person in the room. I know I've said 1,000 things now, but my departing comment is you do not need to be the smartest person in the room. You need to be able to ask the right questions and create that vision, that inspiration that pulls people in the direction that you can see you can go in. But you don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to push people's thinking, as we will push your thinking if you did something with us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nadeira. I've learned so much.
Thank you, Hoffa. Thanks for having me. I had the most amount of fun.
This is so interesting. And there's a lot of self-reflection that's happening now. And especially how I viewed awareness, actually. And I think my fear with awareness is that it sometimes becomes crippling when you know what your weaknesses are. And now you start thinking, you become paranoid and think people around you know what your weaknesses are. And again, when you mentioned that you don't have to necessarily be the smartest person in the room, I think that acknowledgement alone makes you the smartest person in the room. Because that means that you're open and willing to learn. And I'm really excited about this anticipatory leader process. And I think you are an amazing person. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I think you're doing incredible work, and thank you for the compliment, but right back at you, because you're asking questions. you're curious, you're open, and you're asking the right questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for listening. We look forward to receiving your comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.